since 2007, Harbour Air has achieved carbon neutrality by calculating its GHG emissions and purchasing carbon credits for the equivalent tons. And now we're moving to insetting, to move beyond carbon neutral, to have an even larger impact. By essentially, we're making this move to double down on R&D associated with the E-plane.
Welcome to Sustainability in the Air, the world's first podcast dedicated to sustainable aviation. I'm your host, Shashank Nigam, the CEO of Simplifying. Every Thursday, I have important conversations with top aviation executives, technology entrepreneurs, and policymakers helping aviation take climate action. Conversations that help separate the signal from the noise. Whether you are a frequent flyer or an airline executive, if you care about sustainability or simply love traveling, welcome aboard. I have today with me not one, but three guests. Bert van der Stege is the CEO of Vancouver-based seaplane company Harbour Air. He is joined by Erica Holtz, who leads engineering and quality for the E-plane, the electric plane, the E-Beaver that Harbour Air has been successfully operating. And I also have Suzanne Bremski, who is the head of digital and customer experience at Harbour Air. The three of them discuss in a very holistic and rare manner the successes, the challenges, and the future of the E-plane program. Harbour Air till date has successfully conducted 78 flights, becoming not just the world's first, but the world's only commercial airline to have carried out so many flights. They've learned a lot of lessons from charging times to turnaround times to weight of batteries and what that can do. Bert, Erica, and Suzanne discuss this from a strategic perspective, what it means for airlines and future of battery-operated aircraft. From a customer perspective, why insetting is better than offsetting. And also from an engineering perspective. Avid listeners of this podcast would remember, I did interview the original founder and former CEO of Harbour Air when the E-plane was first launched. I hope you enjoy this follow and much more detailed conversation. Today's is a very special episode because we have not one but three guests from Harbour Air, which many of you might recall from a couple of years ago, when we had their former CEO and founder talk about the first E-plane flight. Today we've got Bert van der Stege, their CEO, Erica Holtz, who's leading the E-plane initiative, and Suzanne Bremski, who's working on all things commercial and working on also commercializing the electric aircraft technology for Harbour Air. Ladies and gent, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Shashank.
Thank you.
Indeed. So, Bert, why don't we start with you? Harbour Air was the first airline in the world to introduce carbon offsetting, the first commercial airline to operate an electric plane, and now is the first airline to introduce insetting. Why are you doing this? And can you tell us more about these initiatives and where they are today?
Yeah, for sure. Why do this? Well, because it can be done. I think what we've proven since 2019 is that electric aviation can become a reality, and we're happy to elaborate a bit more during today's podcast here as to why we think we are best suited for electric flying. Carbon offsetting, we believe, has had its time. It definitely had its purpose. It's worked well for us. We've been offsetting all our flights since 2007, but now in 2024, we believe it's time for something new, and we're proud to introduce a new concept, insetting, where Suzanne will speak about a bit more in future.
You of course made history in 2019 with the first flight of an all-electric commercial aircraft. Why are you so well suited for electric airplane? And now with 78 test flights, how's the journey been?
We fly at low altitude, Shashank. So I think first and foremost, the fact that a takeoff doesn't require as much power as obviously flying at higher altitude, we believe is key to becoming an all-electric commercial airline. Secondly, the average flight time of the scheduled routes we have in our network is just about 30 minutes. Again, that makes perfect sense for electric aviation. And finally, we couldn't have done this without the commitment and the support of our customers and the wider community. Absolute key in our journey towards an all-electric commercial network.
At this point, let me bring Erica in, who has been working on a lot of these flights. Erica, what's been the experience operating 78 flights? How's the journey been?
It has been a very interesting journey with these 78 flights, especially during COVID. We couldn't have our partners come and actually participate in the flight, so we had to do everything remotely. We would record the flights and send them over to magniX afterwards for analysis and review. But it was very exciting, and it was very interesting learning the different behaviors of the system versus a standard combustion engine. For example, the discharge and charge rates aren't linear, right? You're used to a standard flow rate of your fuel, and it doesn't flow the same for the duration of the flight. And that's something that's going to be very interesting for airliners to deal with later. We also learned a lot about the infrastructure and the requirements of things like additive heat, right? You're not used to adding heat when you charge as well as when you fly. So right now, you heat the system up when you're flying, then you land and you want to charge it, and you're going to keep adding heat. Unless you find a way to manage that thermal system, you're only going to get a certain number of flights a day. So those have been some of the interesting things we've learned so far.
That's interesting. And of course, you were flying only one route for these test flights, I'm assuming. But converting an existing fleet to electric is an ambitious undertaking. But beyond the technical aspect, what changes to infrastructure, operations, and workforce are required to switch to electric aircraft?
There's different requirements from a flight operations perspective. We need the eBeaver to become certified for us to be able to carry commercial passengers. The current plan is for us to be ready in 2026. On the ground, the major requirement is infrastructure, and then in particular charging infrastructure. Obviously, we do look forward to collaborating with the terminals, with the cities that we serve, 12 cities in total, 11 in Canada, plus Seattle in the United States, and are very keen on working with these stakeholders to ensure that we do get the proper infrastructure in place to charge these aircraft as fast as we can and prevent aircraft from being on the water or on the ground for a long period of time.
When you say charge them as fast as you can, how long does it take to charge an aircraft? We know how long it takes to charge an electric car. What about an aircraft?
It all depends, Shashank. Very good question. On the test flights we've done, we've literally had to sometimes use extension cables. And I think the longest charge we had was 14 hours during one of the stops we did during the multi-stop test flying program we did. So we haven't just used them on one particular route. We've flown the first eBeaver, the prototype, across the network. But obviously, we're hoping to get that number reduced significantly so that we can integrate an electric flight, an electric eBeaver as smoothly as possible into our existing schedule.
Right. So, Erica, over to you then. If your goal is to certify and operationalize an all-electric seaplane route by 2025, what are some of the milestones you need for that to happen between now and then to make that a reality?
So we're the aircraft integrator, and so we're using certified components in the aircraft. So a couple of the really big milestones are things like the propeller we're using is a experimental propeller. We need the propeller certified by Hartzell in both the United States and Canada for us to use it. And same with the electric engine. So magniX is designing and certifying their electric engine as an aircraft engine. It'll be Part 33 certified. We need that certified in the United States and familiarized into Canada so that we can use that on our aircraft. So we can install the components on the aircraft and we can do our test flying right now, but we can't achieve certification until those two pieces are complete. And the other big piece would be agreeing to a means of compliance with the regulatory bodies about how to certify the lithium-ion batteries. Those would be the three big pieces we need.
Wow, and that's a lot of certification. It seems that needs to get this going. You've of course, been doing this for some time. What are some of the challenges and learning that you've had in testing this electric seaplane technology? Like Bert was saying, leaving it on the water for too long. You don't want to do that.
The water was an interesting one because water is a pretty good heat sink. And so one thing I would say we found with the retrofit aircraft is because we have batteries in the belly and batteries inside the aircraft and on the front, they're each in different, I'll call them temperature zones. And especially the batteries that were in the belly that were closest to the water, they would rapidly be losing heat to the water during the charging cycle. And we would end up with temperature differentials between the batteries in the belly and the batteries inside the cabin. So much so that actually charging would stop because we get over more than a 15 degrees Celsius temperature differential in the system. And the system won't charge if you have that larger differential. So we had to put an insulating layer. We put some plywood across the floats to block that flow of heat, that rate of heat transfer. So there are definitely some interesting things we've learned about that. So like the challenges of charging the aircraft on the water versus in a controlled environment like the hangar that are going to be, I don't know so much certification challenges, but challenges for us to manage. I would say more on the certification challenges, finding that real line between what is something that a component has to certify versus what is something you have to certify at the aircraft level, right? They're working on battery modules. They're trying to certify them to certain thermal runaway conditions and containment. And what you do at the module level is going to impact what you do at the aircraft level, right? Because you have to manage any of the heat or pressure that comes out of those modules in the event of a thermal runaway. And so how the component manufacturer manages that changes how we integrate it at the aircraft, which is going to change the certification requirements. And currently, the regulators are not harmonized on how they want to approach that. EASA has their ideas, the FAA has their ideas, and Transport Canada has their ideas. It's something they're working on. They have a group that's trying to harmonize this, but currently, that I think is one of the big challenges, is getting everybody on the same page as what is the route to certification.
That is very interesting. Can an airline like Harbour Air play a role in harmonizing these multitude of standards?
Absolutely. We all have an opportunity to participate in these committees. So there's a committee for the ASTM called the F44 Committee, and it's dedicated to updating the ASTM standards that will be used to help us develop the means of compliance in order to gain certification of these components and at the aircraft level.
I'm glad to hear that, because once these different bodies come together to certify, you can of course look at operating more routes as well. I believe that the current initial range for these flights is 30 minutes plus reserves. How does this align with your current routes, and what's the longer term outlook for extending these electric flight times? And this may be Erica or Bert, either one.
I'm happy to start, Shashank. We're excited to accelerate the adoption of electric aviation technology to literally further our journey towards a sustainable future. The current average flight time in our network is just over 30 minutes. As I've mentioned before, we think we are perfectly suited to continue developing the technology for the network that we serve. Two of our destinations at present, Seattle in the United States and Powell River, are flights of around 50 minutes total travel time. Those flights initially won't be ready for electric aviation, but everything else we do, we believe, is going to be within that sort of 30-35 minute time frame, plus sufficient reserve. And yeah, as a result, we're excited about the fact that the majority of our network is within range. And we believe this can underscore the commitment to truly revolutionize commercial aviation.
Suzanne, you of course have an ear to the ground when it comes to the consumers. I'm very curious. Canada does not have the strict regulations and mandates of Europe. Canada also does not have the rather lucrative incentives that are in the US. Why is Harbour Air sticking its neck out and experimenting on this e-plane? Why are you running this program? What's the motivation?
That's a great question, Shashank. Harbour Air, located in BC, this is pretty fortuitous for us. British Columbia, as a province in Canada, is showing so much innovation with respect to sustainable transportation, both from what the consumers are wanting to what the governments are supporting. So in the transportation space, you're seeing just so much innovation, both in terms of consumer vehicles. You see electric vehicles and electric ride sharing. In terms of the public transportation, there's so much innovation in that space with the ferries. Even there, I just read about a electric refrigeration truck. So we're in a province where this is not only supported by consumers but also by the government. So we believe that electric aviation is really important for transportation in BC, and it forms the next part of the story here. We are putting our flag in the ground, and we firmly believe that it is going to be a really important part of the consumer journey to offer them the option for sustainable aviation. And we at Harbour Air as well, we're looking at ways of making the entire journey sustainable. So, obviously, electric aviation is the really, really big piece, but there's all kinds of things that we're doing that make the entire experience sustainable. For example, we have electric shuttles in some of our locations. We sell sustainable products in our boutiques, and even things like we offer reusable mugs as well. So at our cafes, so we're looking at small ways at reducing our carbon footprint and making the entire journey sustainable.
Very interesting. So you're saying the end-to-end customer journey, or at multiple touch points, you look at how the journey can be made sustainable.
Absolutely. We absolutely look at ways at all the different touch points to make it sustainable. Some ways are easier than others. Some ways are feasible and viable. But the big one here, of course, is the actual flight itself. So that is why we are focusing on the E-plane. But to your point, yes, we do try to make different touch points sustainable where we are able.
Harbour, of course, serves many small coastal communities in British Columbia. What role do you see electric aircraft playing in improving transportation accessibility and connectivity for these areas?
That's a great question. We're very proud to connect the smaller coastal communities to themselves as well as to the mainland, and we routinely poll our customers in terms of the importance of our different initiatives and the sustainability. The importance of sustainability always shines through, and we're uniquely positioned as well. Given to your point of connecting the smaller communities on these are short haul flights, typically are often 30 minutes. So we are uniquely positioned as well to offer this technology because we have smaller aircraft and short flights. So electric technology is appropriate for us.
I'm glad to hear that. What's been the response like to this initiative?
Oh, the response has been very keen, very keen. It's I had someone tell me that they're very proud that the E-plane is a BC-based initiative and that's an innovation born here. So the response has been fantastic. We've flown 78 test flights to date, and people come out and watch and they cheer, and we're extremely proud of this initiative. And it seems as though British Columbians are also proud, which we are very, very grateful for. And frankly, without our customers supporting us and flying with us, that's what we are. That's how we are doing the E-plane. So we're very, very pleased and proud.
I'm glad to hear the response. What about payment? Now, we've all heard that flying sustainably will cost more. Will it cost more to customers?
That's a good question. Remains to be seen. We're looking at starting with tour products as the initial flights for the E-plane, but the commercials of that have yet to be fully fleshed out. But that's a great question.
One of the other questions is around offsetting versus insetting, because that's something you've introduced. Harbour Air was one of the first airlines in the world to introduce offsetting many years ago. And now you're switching to insetting. What is that and how does it work?
Good question. So Harbour Air offset since 2007. And to give credit to everybody that was there back in 2007, this was an absolutely trailblazing initiative. This was before offsetting was super commonplace, and they were among the first to really do this. Since 2007, Harbour Air has achieved carbon neutrality by calculating its GHG emissions and purchasing carbon credits for the equivalent tons. And now we're moving to insetting, to move beyond carbon neutral, to have an even larger impact by essentially, we're making this move to double down on R&D associated with the E-plane. And so at a high level, if you have an emission, if as a company, if you have an emission that you don't like, that you want to do something about, there's a few things that you can do. You can do nothing. You could avoid it, so stopping the activity that's causing it. You could reduce it or abate it if you have the technology in place to do so, or you can offset. So offsetting is essentially compensating for these hard to abate emissions by investing in external projects that basically remove or reduce an equivalent amount. So offsetting is very appropriate for emissions that are feasibly and or viably difficult to abate. Operational aviation fuel for a very long time fell in that category. And so, and because there's very few other options available. There's sustainable aviation fuel, but we know that that's difficult to come by currently. There's more efficient aircraft, but that is also, something that's a whole capital project. So the emissions associated with operational aviation fuel have been very difficult to avoid or abate for a very long time. We're on a mission right now to bring to market a technology that can make these emissions avoidable, both feasibly and viably, by fuel switching. So, which would mean that offsetting for us is no longer appropriate in this space. So, insetting for us is actions or investments within our own operations, production, or value chain for the long-term sustainable mitigation or avoidance of emissions. So that's insetting to us. There's a few definitions of insetting which you're probably well familiar with in this space. Nothing that's ISO official yet, but I will state that insetting typically refers to projects associated with Scope 3 emissions, because the largest source of emissions for us, over 90%, is operational aviation fuel. We are insetting to invest in technology that's targeted at Scope 1, because that is our largest source of emissions. So we are doubling down on R&D investment in the E-plane program. And we've done this by introducing a sustainability fee on every scheduled flight and every scenic flight and tour product. And what we've essentially done is we've calculated the carbon footprint associated with each and every product and flight. And we have valuing carbon at a price that is in line with the voluntary market. We have essentially put that on every product. So that is how we are insetting. We used to have an offset charge. Now we have a sustainability fee. So in summary, offsetting is really counterbalancing your unavoidable emissions by funding GHG projects from third parties via carbon credits. It's transactional. You're not actually physically reducing your own emissions. You're offsetting them each year. Whereas insetting, we're viewing as long-term process or operational improvements within your production or value chain. So focusing on the long-term emissions reductions capabilities. Both offsetting and insetting have a role, of course, a very important role, but we are focusing on, because our mission here is to make the emissions associated with operational aviation fuel avoidable in the future. We have moved from offsetting to insetting for those emissions.
Got it. This is very interesting. I do not know of any other major airlines around the world, commercial airlines, that are doing insetting. And here, essentially, you're charging a fee on top of your fares for all of your passengers, and instead of offsetting, let's say, planting some mangroves in Madagascar or protecting a rainforest in northern BC, you're saying we're going to use these funds to make travel more sustainable. Why wouldn't you buy sustainable aviation fuel through this instead?
I mean, so that's a great question. Sustainable aviation fuel absolutely has a role. So we are uniquely positioned, given that we A, have developed this technology, B, we fly short haul routes on smaller aircraft. So electrification really makes sense for us, where it may not necessarily make sense for carriers that have jets, like larger aircraft. We're uniquely positioned to take advantage of this and bring electric flight to market. SAF plays a role. what we did is in terms of, if you have $1 of investments that you want to put towards sustainable aviation, there's a bunch of different things that you can do. You can offset. You could purchase SAF. You could purchase aircraft that are more efficient. We believe that $1 invested in the E-plane project to bring electric flight to market has the largest impact. So SAF is an option, absolutely, but we feel like the $1 of investment in the E-plane project has a significantly larger impact for us, because it is our intent to not only electrify our fleet, but also to electrify third-party fleet.
Wow. You've been a first mover in electric aviation at Harbour Air. What advantages, Bert, do you anticipate this will provide you? And how might it transform or change your business model? I believe we had some major announcements on Earth Day as well.
That's correct. On Earth Day, we announced the signing of a letter of intent with magniX, global leader in electric aviation propulsion. We announced that we'll be purchasing up to 50 Magni 650 electric engines, an agreement that we think will mark a significant step towards not only our ambitious goal of electrifying our fleet and commitment to sustainable aviation, but also a very significant step towards regional transportation, especially here on the West Coast in general. A first step. Lots of work still needed. We also announced that magniX will support the Transport Canada validation of the Magni 650 type certificate. magniX will assist in the certification work that's required for Harbour Air to obtain both a Canadian and American STC, supplemental type certificate, for installing the Magni 650 on the eBeaver, with an option to extend the support to other aircraft platforms. That, I believe, is a real opportunity for us as Harbour Air. And in the short term, as I mentioned before, both the British Columbia government has been tremendously supportive, and first and foremost, our customers have been very much supporting the innovative solutions that contribute to a much cleaner environment and a greener economy. If it wasn't for the customers that we carry on each and every flight every single day, we wouldn't be able to do this.
This is quite radical if you think about it. What you're saying is not only will Harbour Air be flying electric with these latest engines that you have just signed the LOI for, you will be able to retrofit any of these small aircraft that are flying around North America, I would say. And in comes a normal aircraft and out goes an electric aircraft. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, a key element of our vision is to develop our aerospace center, and we look forward to providing electrification conversions and services to third parties, like we currently do in the more traditional way of providing aerospace services. The agreement with magniX, the LOI that we signed on Earth Day with magniX, helps solidify the vision we have by ensuring that the supply of electric engines is available for our customers as well, customers that we currently serve through our Harbour Air Aerospace Center, as well as new customers.
Now, that is quite visionary, I would think, because a lot of airlines are struggling to just maintain their existing current business and trying to make that sustainable from a business point of view, economically sustainable, let alone think about how they can serve the larger community. So I think that's very encouraging. Erica, in addition to your partnership with magniX, what other collaborators are critical to realizing your electric ambitions and bringing this technology to market?
I think it's an interesting array of collaboration. One, we actually see the regulator as a collaborator, right? The regulator has to be involved. We're working with them. We're not waiting for them to say this is the bar you need to cross and then jumping over it. We're trying to work together to create the bars that we need to cross. So I would say the regulator is a strong collaborator within this. I think all the producers of the battery technology whether that's H55 or EP Systems or some yet as undetermined supplier who's looking into aviation. I think that that's a really strong item that we need. A collaborator that is important is to make sure the battery technology keeps advancing. I think other collaborators are going to be people such as the educational institutes. There's going to be a significant amount of training required across the board, from the technicians and the AMEs to the pilots to the engineers. There's a lot of knowledge that's going to need to be transferred into industry. So collaborating with those institutes and collaborating with other airlines and creating that network of people and collaborating with the other airlines to help them adopt these technologies, right? We can work with our competitors to help them embrace the technology as well. So I think it's a pretty large set of collaborators.
Very nicely put. It's the entire ecosystem in the end that comes in. Looking ahead to 2030s, how ubiquitous do you think small electric aircraft will become, and what future do you envision for this type of transformation?
I think the future is going to be really interesting. I think that there's no end to the general aircraft that can be converted. I think retrofit is significantly important to decarbonize aviation, right? We're going to need clean sheet, and I can see the clean sheet aircraft coming, and they're going to be way more efficient. Yes, have longer range, better endurance. But to decarbonize aviation, you have to go after the existing aircraft. And I think by, 20 into the 30s, we could see any number of aircraft being converted, any of the 4-6 seat general aviation. I also think that it's really important that we develop this technology now on these smaller aircraft, and then it can be scaled up and adapted to the larger aircraft. Yes, we're likely never going to fully electrify a 737, but there are components of their flights, right? There are phases of flight that can use this technology, whether it's for the ground, for the taxiing purposes, or even a phase of flight like takeoff. If there's a way to use this technology, whether it's hydrogen or fully electric, to reduce the noise on takeoff, now the aircraft can take off at different times, which affects their contrails. Like there's a significant amount of work that can be done at the large aircraft category that doesn't have to embrace fully electric, but can embrace pieces of the technology that we develop in general aviation.
Thank you. What word of advice would you give to an airline that is looking to start on this journey you've already been on for a few years now?
I think the piece of advice I would give is that I think each airline needs to look at what they are capable of doing now and what could be done in the future, right? We don't all have to fit the same mold. It's not the same technology that's going to work for everybody. I think each one has the obligation to look at what they are capable of doing right now and take steps in that direction.
Very succinctly answered. Thank you. Given that you've already taken leadership, not a lot of airlines can get to this point. They're struggling with the economic realities of just running the airline business. What tips would you have for any airline CEO who's looking to go on this journey?
My advice, Shashank, would be to embrace the change. I think it's very easy for airline CEOs to sit back and sort of look at this thinking, yeah, one day it'll come and suppliers will present us with certain products. In our case, we've proven that innovation can be done in-house. Yes, it does require a little bit of risk-taking. Yes, it does require quite a bit of investment. We think that's within the risks that we as an airline take every single day. And airlines in particular are very good at risk mitigating and risk assessments. Innovation is at the heart of what we do at Harbour Air. The team led by Erica has done a phenomenal job implementing electric aviation, and in particular this project together with magniX for the eBeaver. And yeah, my main piece of advice would be to embrace the change and not get stuck in the, well, something's going to happen at some point anyway. Become part of it and be at the forefront in supporting innovative solutions that contribute to a cleaner environment and a greener economy.
Well, thank you, Bert and Erica, for that. Battery technology is evolving fast. We've already spoken about magniX. How do you work with different suppliers? Who are the different suppliers? And how is battery density important to the future of your vision for the product as well?
Yeah, absolutely, Shashank. Obviously, I spoke quite a bit about magniX. the other partnerships that are key to an electrification project as we're undertaking is the relationships that we have with battery suppliers. We currently use EP Systems batteries in the eBeaver 1.0, the prototype, the test flights, the 78 test flights that we spoke about earlier. We're also working with Swiss-based H55. H55 opened a Canadian facility in Montreal. We're very excited and very supportive of the investment they've made in Canada, and are working very, very closely together to ensure that we can help with data, with the experience that we gather to ensure that we're taking the right decisions around battery development, and obviously, in particular, when it comes to battery density and for us as airline to look at the range and the payload that will become available as a result of the development we're doing.
That's good to know, working with the whole range of suppliers. Erica, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's important to recognize that we have to freeze the design at a certain point with the battery technology. And so we are not able to take advantage of the latest technology right away. We have to freeze the design right now. We choose the energy density that's available, that's already been proven to a certain level. We take that all the way through to certification over the next couple of years. And then once we're done, because we'll have created that pathway to certification, we will be able to look at the technology that's available then. And I expect that by then we'll be able to make some significant jumps, because we can already see, we're using battery cell technology that's probably in the 250 watt hours per kilogram kind of range. Within the next couple of years, I can see them being significant advancements up to, maybe 350 watt hours per kilogram or more. But we can't use that right away. So we're stuck with, yes, our 30 minutes flight with 30-minute reserve with, the capabilities we have right now, because we have to get the ball over the line, right? We have to get to certification with something that's proven. And then it should be a pretty fast follow-on project at that point if we've created that path to bring the new technology into the aircraft quite quickly.
Fair enough. Indeed, the battery technology is always improving, and it only helps your use case. Even if you're frozen the design right now, in 2 years' time, it's probably improved by leaps and bounds, and it's going to help your operations further. Now, the final round of this interview is called a rapid fire round, and this time, Suzanne, you can also join in. And we're gonna, I'm gonna ask you simple questions, and you can jump in with your favorite answers. Like, what's your favorite book? Anyone?
Orson Scott Card, Ender's Game.
Okay, I have to add one to my list now. Well done. Who wants to go with a favorite airline? Bert, I'm gonna put you on the spot here. Favorite airline, Bert?
That has to be Harbour Air. Flying seaplanes is pretty unique, and flying along the beautiful west coast here in BC is absolutely spectacular.
All right, fine. I'm sure that makes Suzanne really happy, as the one who's looking after the customers, that she's got one more happy customer. What about a favorite airport? What's your favorite airport, Bert and Suzanne and Erica?
Mine is definitely the airport I grew up closest to. Amsterdam Airport remains my absolute favorite, Shishan.
Well, yes, Amsterdam is up there for me too. Suzanne and Erica, favorite airports?
Was the only one in Europe I've been to besides Prague, and I did not like the one in Prague very much, so I'm going with Amsterdam.
It doesn't have to be a European airport. It could be Vancouver.
Well, I've only been to Vancouver and Toronto, and I didn't like Toronto's at all.
All right, Suzanne, do you have a good answer for us?
I mean, I feel like this is a maybe an unfair answer, but I really like that we fly out of, we fly harbor to harbor, so you can actually avoid the airport should you choose to. Like, I really like flying out of Cole Harbour, particularly.
I have never flown out of Cole Harbour, but I want to do that.
Oh, you will need to.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I've only flown out of Vancouver and the Vancouver South at the airport. Favorite cities?
Vancouver
for me too. Absolutely.
Wow. And Bert?
Yes.
I'll pick a city that I think actually has quite a bit in common. Auckland, New Zealand.
Okay. Looks like all of you like nature and the sea and the city together. Not urban jungle. No urban jungle fans here. Favorite movie?
I'm a nerd. Star Wars.
Okay.
I'm going for the classic National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Right? Yeah.
Every Christmas Eve.
It's a tradition.
Okay, Home Alone and that one. And Bert,
Another
favorite
good
movie?
I recently watched Oppenheimer. Very, very interesting. Good education. Good
Yes,
refresher.
of what goes on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm surprised nobody mentioned Top Gun or Top Gun Maverick here, given how often it is mentioned on this podcast.
He didn't land on.
There's no pilots on. That's why.
He didn't land on
There you
water.
go.
That's why we don't like that.
What do the three of you like doing in your free time?
I like everything outside, hence why Vancouver is my favorite city. I love to mountain bike, I love to hike, I love to ski, I love to climb. So I love the West Coast.
Okay, Erica?
I'm also, it's a bit 50-50 outdoor and indoor. I'm a gardener. So I like growing my own plants. I grow a salsa garden, and then I can my vegetables, in particular making salsa.
Wow, salsa. And Bert, what do you do in your free time?
I'll add something new to this. In addition to activities outdoor, helping in the garden, I play the piano.
Piano. I didn't know that.
I do.
Okay, very nice. Next time we meet, now we know what we're doing. Last two questions. What is something you would like to learn?
I would like to learn the risks and benefits of AI.
Are you using ChatGPT at all?
I am, yep.
Okay, all right, that's a good start. Erica,
Well, I just don't know if it's realistic, but I always wanted to learn to fly.
you work with an airline. How unrealistic can that be?
I
Go for
spend
it.
a lot of time working in the engineering department, so I don't have a lot of free time.
I was speaking to another CEO on this podcast, and he mentioned that one of the employee perks that they have in the company is that everyone gets to qualify for a private pilot license on the company's cost. And it's become one of the biggest retention factors for the company. So, Bert, something to think about. And Suzanne, what about you? What would you like to learn?
Oh, geez, so much. I second Bert's note on AI. To be honest, I feel really privileged with people that I get to work with and learning from them. Erica is a prime example of that. I learn more and more about what she does with respect to the e-plane all the time, and I'm just enjoying learning more and more about that. I think it's amazing, to be honest with you.
Fantastic. And final question: what is the best advice you have received?
Recently, I've learned don't sweat aging. It's a privilege to grow old. I think that's the best advice that I've heard is don't sweat it. We should all be so lucky to be getting old and gray.
Fantastic. Did you learn this after the grouse grind?
Yeah, exactly.
One day. Erica, what about you?
I think for me, it was interesting. As an engineer, I was always pretty awkward with people. And I learned from another engineer about communication and always understanding what it is you wanted to achieve with the conversation. If you're going into a communication with somebody, whether it's personal or professional, knowing ahead of time what your goal of the conversation is, what is the purpose of your communication, so you can focus what your all of the comments that you make towards achieving that goal. And I think that was a pretty important lesson for me early in my career.
Wow. That's a very good one. The best advice I've heard about conversations or speaking, I'm an extrovert, is whatever you say, try to make sure it is true, useful, and kind. And if it doesn't check even one box, don't say it.
I like that.
Which so
I've said that to my children, actually, so that's good.
fantastic. And Bert, why don't we end with you? What's the best advice you've received?
3 words. Trust your gut.
Sounds good. On that note, let's end this interview. Thank you very much, everyone, for participating. I really am excited about what Harbour Air has shown the world can be done, pioneering electric flight, as well as offsetting back in the day, in the early days, to insetting now. And I'm even more excited about what the future holds in terms of the innovation that is coming from an engineering standpoint to business model to even the consumer standpoint. So congratulations on all the progress, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Shashank.
Thank you. I look forward to speaking with you again when we get further ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Sustainability in the Air. Aviation is one of the hardest to decarbonize industries, yet there are multiple paths to get to net zero. Awareness is key to a green future. So please give us your support to help our sustainable aviation insights reach a wider audience. You can do this by sharing this episode on your network, on LinkedIn, Twitter, or even WhatsApp. Or perhaps you might consider leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to this episode. You can start a conversation with us by writing to us at podcast@simpliflying, that's simply with an i.com. And for more content on sustainable aviation, please visit our website green.simpliflying.com and join the movement. Sustainability in the Air is an original podcast by Simpliflying. The show is produced by Juraj Toth in Slovakia. Dirk Singer is our Director of Sustainability, who leads research for each interviewee out of Greenwich, UK. Shubhadeep Pal is our supervising editor based out of Mumbai and Singapore. The articles are written by Ayushi Badola in Dehradun in India and Mira Hull in Montreal, Quebec. Creative design is led by Ligia Esteve in Montreal. Baiba Drimen is the project director for the show based out of Valencia, Spain. Special thanks to Wendy Sim in Singapore. And I'm Shashank Nigam, the CEO of Simpliflying and your host. Please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn.